Hi, everyone. It's September 15th, 2020. We're about 6 months into this unusual year with the coronavirus, with social unrest, and so many issues that are facing all of our communities. Today, we have the pleasure of checking in with Carin Savel, who's the executive director of the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut. We'll find out what's happening, how we've been coping these last 6 months, and what's up for the future. Hi, Carin. Good to see you today.
Hi, Sheila. It's good to see you.
Okay, well, we spoke, right, see you virtually. We spoke several months ago at the beginning of this, and of course, you have been in the position for over a year now, and you never anticipated you could walk into such a situation as we have now. So how have you been coping, and what has been happening with how you're communicating and keeping touch and keeping base with our extended Jewish community in Eastern Connecticut?
Well, nothing is the same. I mean, the best laid plans, forget about it. I came in about 18 months ago, and I have to say truthfully that I think the happiest guy on the face of the earth is the guy that retired when I came. So he didn't have to deal with anything. He'd been in the job 35 years, and then I came in year one. I got about, I guess, 6 months on the job before COVID-19 hit, and it really changed everything. For starters, as you already know, we have a fairly, I think, aging Jewish community, although lately that's been shown not to be true. And so it's not just been a matter of communicating, it's teaching people how to communicate again. And we've just done a yeoman's job between the small staff at the Federation and our community volunteers, showing people how to communicate. I mean, there's just any number of things that we've been doing, including, feeding people and talking about Israel and trying to make things as normal as possible without kind of saying that this is the new normal, because I think it's transition. I think that we will probably never go back to exactly where we were. A lot of people like Zoom. A lot of people they like it. I didn't have to get into my car and drive to your studio today. It was wonderful. But we've had to learn new techniques. We've had to learn how to better communicate, with our Chevra, our family in the community.
Yeah. So of course, with all of the social methods, whether it's internet, Instagram, WhatsApp, the internet, we have been connecting that way during this coronavirus. I mean, you think back to the 1918 flu pandemic, when people didn't have those means of communication. The world is so much different. It lets us have that intimacy, but still there are people left out who are alienated. And I want you to talk about them within the Jewish community, who maybe they don't have internet, they don't have families, and they may be living alone. How have we been reaching out to them, and what do they need, and how have we been helping them?
Well, that's changed a lot. That's a very good point. Sheila, you're part of our senior call tree. I mean, you've been calling seniors with us. We've called thousands of phone calls have been made from the very beginning. When Governor Lamont put us into quarantine, we began to have volunteers and staff call our seniors in the community. And not all of them were Jewish, by the way. We reached out to the greater part of the community and called people on a weekly basis. And as COVID lasted longer and longer, we had to make more phone calls. I have to tell you, on a personal note, I have a staff member, Carly, who handles our community outreach. This was her whole senior call tree, and Carly calls my mother every week to talk about what's going on. They need that sort of reach out and touch. But we also found out that the longer this went on, the more depression set in, loneliness set in, just that feeling of being away from your family, of thinking that you're on your own. We had several untimely deaths in the community, and people began to get nervous and scared. And so we developed a brand new program that we put out called Senior Connections. And we're going to be doing outdoors at noon, which is brand new for our seniors. They're used to staying in one place. They go to Temple Emmanuel for lunch. And now we're going to be doing just a number of activities with them over the next 3 months. We're going to be doing tie-dye masks and Tai Chi, and we've got someone coming in to talk about their survivor story that's an adult child of Holocaust survivors. We're doing beach bingo and adult coloring and glass painting, and we can do 10 seniors at a time. So we are doing as many of these as we can. They're going to be held at the Rotary Pavilion at Ocean Beach, and it will give them a chance to see each other. And I cannot underestimate what that does. I actually know the data, is that there's chemical hormones that get released when you hug or you see somebody that your body chemically shifts. And so we're looking to kind of move the needle with our seniors so they don't feel quite so isolated, even though there'll only be 10 of them under the Rotary Pavilion that holds like 3,500. We'll have enough space and they'll have a good time, and they won't feel like there are so much on the outside.
Well, will they be bused? Will you give them, obviously you'll give them transportation to get to the, no? They'll have to get their own transportation?
Yeah, because we're not busing them because it's not safe to do so. We cannot safely get them on a bus to do that. So they are responsible for their own transportation, but they also know that instead of meeting, once a month or whatever it is, there's several opportunities for them to come and take part in all of these things. So each event will be done a minimum of 2 to 3 times. So in case they missed it, and they're going to get lunch, which is wonderful. And they get to socialize, even though they're going to socialize from 6 to 10 feet away. You can't underestimate the importance of one human being, just looking at another and smiling and saying hello.
So will you alternate different groups so everybody gets a chance to participate in some of this stuff?
Yeah, Carly is overseeing the whole thing. Plus, she's got adjunct staff that's helping her. But I know that your Rabbi Ken Alter, is going to be taking them through a Kabbalah meditation on Tuesdays, and then someone else is going to come in and do a tie-dyeing face mask, so they get to individuate their own face mask. And we are a community that is rife with adult children of Holocaust survivors, and we run a program in the community called Encountering Survivors, which goes into the high schools and talks to high school kids. An adult child will tell their story, maybe with some artifacts and some pictures. And it's really on a high school level to fight Holocaust denial. As you well know, that it's still alive and well in this country. But what we thought was we would take this into the seniors as well. We would take it to the seniors. And so we have speakers coming in 2 to 3 times to tell their story. Rabbi Alter must be very, very spry because he's also teaching Tai Chi, and they're really excited about that. And of course, bingo. Who doesn't love bingo? I'm probably going to go to bingo. Of all the things, I'll schlep over to see bingo. But one of our community volunteers had told us about the effectiveness of adult coloring, where you have coloring books and projects. And so we're going to be doing some of those things. They're kind of a relaxing type of deal. And then we're going to do some glass painting. This is really, it's not even so much the activity as it is the social awareness of each other.
The connection. I just hope people aren't afraid to come out, because I've spoken to some more elderly people, seniors, and many of them are resigned to being at home and are happy to be at home. Hopefully they'll get a safe ride and they'll be able to participate, hopefully.
So that's what we're hoping for. I mean, we're still on the phone with them. Some of our teens and our youth groups have taken on a project. You got to give them a lot of credit, teaching Zoom to senior citizens. So I think that's a big project, and we should give them all a big gold star. But they have been teaching seniors on how to get onto Zoom. And it's not so much to do the Zoom meetings, but it's how to get on the computer, to go to YouTube and go to the opera, or go to the ballet, or go to a museum. And so to just sort of expand people's horizons so that they're not feeling that they're just kind of stuck in their apartments or in their houses.
Right. So that's wonderful. People have to realize that the Federation, the Jewish Federation of Eastern Connecticut, is a social service agency in many of its aspects, as well as keeping the various aspects of the Jewish community together, the different synagogues, the other organizations. And one issue that you've been working so hard on, and is really an eye-opening situation, the issue of hunger. Some of us in the Jewish and the general community don't appreciate how many hungry people we have in Eastern Connecticut. Will you talk about that, Carin, and the work you've been doing there?
Sure. I mean, and reluctantly so. It's definitely not a subject that is easy to talk about now. We don't think about hunger as being alive and well in 2020 in Eastern Connecticut. When COVID hit and Governor Lamont had us go into quarantine, we were one of the first and only food banks, food pantries that stayed open in the community. Everybody else shut down. They were terrified. But our staff is resilient and they're bright, and so they figured out a way to deliver food in a contactless way manner, and they're still doing that. You call the Federation, you give them your food order. Our volunteers and staff, they bag it up and they leave it outside for you. And in all the time we've been doing this in 6 months, we've not had one theft or one issue of anything. But I need to put things in context a little bit, Sheila, that last year at this time, when we were feeding 12 people, for every 12 people, we're now feeding 60 to 75. And that's an enormous just jump in hunger in a community. And I don't need to tell you, as most people know, that when a family goes hungry, when desperate times hit, people do desperate things. And so now we're close to 36,000 meals that we've fed, almost 2,000 adults, 1,500 children, almost 800 seniors, and it shows no sign of stopping. The food pantry is open 5 days a week. We have everybody is helping out, but we do it in a safe and effective manner. And I need to be clear about something, that we're not just feeding Jews, we're feeding anybody. Our basic tenet as the Jewish Federation for Tikkun Olam, which in Hebrew is to repair the world, is to make sure that nobody goes hungry, because nobody should go hungry in 2020 ever, but especially now, nobody. That's the least of things they should worry about. So we've had donors step up they pay for big orders of food for us. And one donor came in and bought us a freezer so that we could house all the food that we were trying to give out. Volunteers have come in. We set up an emergency fund through the Federation if you want to help pay for the food. I guess the bottom line is that as much food as we get in, that's how much food we're getting rid of. That's how much food people are taking. There's never extra laying around.
Right. So let me ask this question. Some people are reluctant or maybe ashamed to admit that they're hungry and that they need help. How do you go about ferreting out those people? How do people who hear about the project know how to contact by keeping their privacy if they don't want people to know?
That's a great question. So I want to go back pre-COVID for a moment to say that the food pantry has always been anonymous and has always been no questions asked. We never ask to see if you make enough money or whatever. We don't care. If you have to come to the Federation to get food, we're feeding you. And now how it's done is that an order is called in and we ask for a first name or a phone number so we know what to put on the bag, and we bag up the groceries that they need, and they have a pickup time, an assigned pickup time. We put the bags out on the back porch so we never see anybody. We don't talk to anybody in person. We don't see anybody in person. And they come by, whether they come by on foot, and many people walk up to the Federation in downtown New London. They'll walk up to the Federation or they'll drive up to the Federation. They'll pick up their bags of food and they'll leave. And it's, funny, like I said before, we've not had one instance where someone has taken somebody else's food. But we did have an instance recently where a man came and slipped an envelope under the door with a note that said, "This is a check for you, because in the beginning I was out of work and I needed food and you fed me and you never asked. So this is some money for you so that you can continue to help other people." I mean, it's all about paying it forward anyway, isn't it?
That's terrific. So it's a wonderful program that people in our community should take advantage of. And as I said again, we don't appreciate how many people are suffering and need help, and you're doing a good job with that. Let's talk about the fact that our culture, our country, our area, we're so polarized. And I know that the Jewish Federation's job is to keep the Jewish community together, to make outreach to the general community, programs together with other religious organizations and so forth. But tell me, Carin, how do we juggle the issues when we have racial injustice, anti-Semitism issues, or political issues? I want you to talk about that. We have discussion groups, we have education, we like to have meetings and learning opportunities. but how does the Jewish Federation bring people together in this cauldron of polarity and fighting and arguing and angst?
Wonderful. So first I want to say what you already know, but we always put this in parentheses, that the rise in anti-Semitism is not a surprise to anybody. We're so used to this, and the data has come in. Literally, there's a third of the global population that thinks COVID was started by Jews. There's no data that says that that's what happened.
Yeah.
This is, any excuse is any excuse possible. So we began to battle that from the very beginning. And it's always the same thing. You have to educate people. You have to educate people. And in this even politically polarizing climate, it's very difficult to get information out without people thinking that, well, that's what you think, but that's not what really it is. So we've tried to do the best we can. We've done a series of webinars like the rest of the world, but we make sure that we're also connecting people with other webinars. Our Encountering program, we also do Encountering Differences, which is about the racial divide. In the 60s, you already know this, you were an activist. In the 60s, the relationship between African Americans, Blacks, and Jews was extraordinary. And we don't have that relationship anymore. We should, but we don't. And so we've done several things. This seems to be an opportunity that both communities feel that COVID has presented an opportunity to actually connect and not separate even further. We did a tremendous webinar called Unpacking Black Lives Matters and Israel, so people could see the connections and where that was coming from. We have a series of webinars coming up from Encountering Differences. The first one being some of our religious institutions here in New London, 3 churches, 2 churches, and a synagogue, to talk about the racial relationships, in New London. I think that we've been fairly fortunate here that we haven't had a lot of sort of in-your-face violence, but it has been my experience, and then I come from places where there are large amounts of violence, that when it happens, the theory is, the feeling is, oh my God, that's never happened here before. And everybody says that right before it happens. So we try to get the information out. We send out things on a weekly basis, information for people to sign up. Our Rosh Hashanah, New Year's is coming. And so I sent out something this morning on how to prepare for a safe Rosh Hashanah. We are still the only religion in the United States when we have our high holidays that we have to hire police, where we have to hire armed guards so that the congregations feel safe. And now that we're doing it on Zoom, because synagogues are not open, I don't know about you, but I attend apparently Zoom meetings from about 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm in Jerusalem, all the way till 9 o'clock at night, when I'm in California. And I have been bombed at almost every Zoom meeting I've been in where the word Jewish appears. You'll get Zoom bombers in there that I've had several Adolf Hitlers. I mean, they come in and this seems to be their opportunity to say what they've been trying to say. So we keep getting the information out there. I should tell you that we launched a new website yesterday. Yesterday. We launched a new website yesterday at jfec.com. Brand new design, but much, much more important than that is we launched the first Jewish community calendar. So it is a common calendar that's going to be used for the entire community. Any Jewish organization can use it. You can put your events in there. You can put your meetings in there. We're trying to give people a sense of how big and vibrant the Jewish community is here, and having this common calendar is going to go a long way there.
That's great. So getting back to the kind of the cultural, political issues, I think we want to make clear that despite your political views, and one of the things that we know now is that even amongst Jews, there are differences when it comes to Israel, when it comes to American politics. We want to make it clear that the Federation is a welcoming home for exchange of views, and you don't take a specific position on an issue, but we're there to educate, to exchange, and to learn, right? That's very, very important.
Very important. And you and I have had this discussion many, many, many times. The Federation is not a religious organization. We're a Jewish organization. We take no political views on anything. And sometimes people like that. Sometimes people don't like that. Our purpose is to mobilize our resources in the community and make sure that we are helping people. And one point, though, that I do want to bring up that you sort of touched on is Israel. Part of our mission is the love and support of Israel. And we have young emissaries that come every year from Israel, and their sole job is to go through the community, usually half and half with the Christian community as well, to teach them about Israel and the love of Israel. And as soon as COVID hit, these kids were sent back. They had to go back to their families in Israel, and we were left kind of like with a vacuum of how do you teach people about Israel. And so we also launched a couple days ago something brand new called the Israel Desk. This is a marvelous thing that's come to the Federation, and it's going to be all things Israel. Christians, Jews, any questions you have about Israel, but we're going to be doing food things. We're going to be doing art with speakers, events, all year long. So if you want Israel, if you want to learn about Israel, and if you want to learn to love Israel, and if you already love Israel and miss it, the Israel Desk is going to be the place for you to come. And we encourage everybody, because the feelings that people have about Israel, it's such interesting. Even if you disagree with what their government is doing, we still need to love the state of Israel because it's our homeland.
Yeah, and that's the point. Just like Hadassah, which is an allied organization, it has an American affairs component that I'm very active in. We care about Israel, we care about its survival, but we don't take a particular stand. The association does it in exactly what political leaders to follow. And we know that amongst our Jewish community, there are divergent views on that, but we have to be a home for all the views, most importantly, to support the importance of Israel surviving. But Carin, let me ask you, over the years, the various studies and polls have shown that there's a change somewhat in the way the American Jewry thinks about Israel. It used to be much, much more intimately connected with Israel's survival. And our young people, especially our college-educated kids, some of them are losing that sense of fervor and are becoming taken over or influenced by the Palestinian liberation movement and by the boycott and divestment movement that's going on in a lot of universities. Talk about that as part of the work of the Federation.
Well, there's no stopping me talking about that because it's one of my favorite subjects. I want to say, just as an aside, that as I'm talking to you, my phone is buzzing because I have an app on my phone when rockets go off in Israel and somebody has bombed Israel. And I've just had 4 in the last 15 seconds. It never stops. And so the BDS movement, to basically, it's to ignore Israel, to divest from Israel, the destruction of Israel. I say the same thing. If that's what you want to do, then give me your cell phone, because the Israelis made that. And if that's what you want to do, then give me your watch and give me your kitchen things. And by the way, they just discovered the gene that's going to cure Alzheimer's. All of the things, the tech things that Israel does. But it's a big job to change people's minds. And it's very, very generational. It's been my experience that people who are generally 50, 65 and up are extremely pro-Israel. I'm a Zionist. I am pro-Israel, regardless of what is going on in the government. I am pro-Israel. That's my homeland. But if you are 55 and under and 50 and under, it's a really hard sell. It's not something that I bring into a conversation right away. It's something that I have to figure out if the person I'm talking to is even interested. There's a disconnect. You have grandchildren. I have a son. He's in his early 30s. He's no connection with Israel. I've offered to take him many times. I hear this from other people all the time. Birthright has gone through significant changes. That's a program where they take young people to Israel for free. So they get to learn and love Israel. And it used to end at 25. Now they've upped it to 35 because they're so desperate to have this demographic, this, Generation Z, and then you've got your millennials to get them involved. So this is what I know about Israel. And this is 100% fail-proof, 100%. If you go to Israel, you come away loving Israel. If you continue to read everything that you read and whatever news sources you go to, you will always say the same thing. Israel's complicated. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I have no connection. One trip to Israel cures everything. And this small federation, the Federation of Eastern Connecticut, is foremost in the state of Connecticut, and I dare say on the East Coast, about the number of missions that we take every year to go to Israel, so we can show the community, Christians and Jews, just how beautiful and wonderful and spiritual and necessary Israel is. As a matter of fact, Sheila, we were on the way to the airport.
I remember.
Yep. When COVID hit and we had to turn around. We came back.
The day before, practically the day before.
Yep. So, we are willing to go to any lengths to promote Israel, to let people know what is going on there, whether it's the food or the culture or the people or the technology and things that we're looking at down the line, taking legislators to Israel, taking the governor to Israel, doing some type of a business trip to Israel so doctors can go and innovators can go, so they can see how we can collaborate. Israel is an extraordinary country, and during COVID, it's been extra difficult to allow people to see the beauty of Israel, but we are doing virtual walking tours of Jerusalem, of Tel Aviv. There's museum tours. We've tried to bring everything to the public through the Federation so that they will continue to learn and love Israel.
Right. And how about the challenges of getting young people more involved? Talk about the PJ Library program and how that's affecting learning about Judaism and Israel.
So of all the programs to be brought in during a COVID epidemic, PJ Library is the least likely to be brought into any federation. And yet I chose to do that this year because I really felt that we had this untapped market in New London County, Westerly, stores, wherever our footprint is. So PJ Library is a program out of the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. They started out giving free books to kids. Jewish kids, to show them their Jewish identity, that they could read these books with their parents. It's grown tremendously. It's from birth to 8. So when your grandchild is born, he gets a set of books from PJ Library. They come every month. You read the books, but now it's more. Now it's about real Jewish identity through events, through experiments, through doing these types of things together. They're learning how to blow the shofar this year using kazoos. They've made challah in a bag. The meetups are not happening because everybody's on Zoom, but the families are coming on. And where we started with 37 families on PJ in March, when we brought it in during the epidemic, we're at 90 families now. So their families are out there, and it's all done through community support. The Grinspoon Foundation pays for part of it. The Federation pays for part of it. And we have donors that pay for part of it. We always need more. I always have to say that because the program is growing. We've been working in Willimantic, which is one of our, outer areas. They have a lot of young families there. And the trick is that PJ was specifically designed for families with only one Jewish head of household. In other words, both parents or both caretakers do not have to be Jewish. It's not religious. It's about Jewish. It's about embracing who you are and your Jewish identity, your history, what we have to look forward to. So, they're painting stained glass windows using tissue like the Chagall, like in the Hadassah Hospital. It just shows these kids what they can be as young Jewish kids and to be proud of who they are. So where everybody said that we were pretty crazy to bring PJ in now, it has been extremely successful and we are growing by leaps and bounds.
Well, that's great. Well, because people are home and families are together and reading is a good thing to do when you're together. So are these books mailed to you? Is it like a book Netflix where you get a series of books? Do you have to return them or do you keep them? How does that work?
You keep them. I guess one of the nicest things about PJ is that the books are addressed to the child, not to the parents. Okay. So the kids wait for them. They're excited that something is actually coming to them in the mail. They keep the books. They're absolutely free to the families, and we expect nothing in return. We don't ask them for any money. As a matter of fact, we can't ask them for any money. We want them to have this for free. So they keep the books. Every once in a while, a parent will come by the Federation and say, my kids are in college now. Would you like this box of PJ books that we kept year after year? But interestingly enough, she should have held on to the books because we're introducing the Bubby program for grandparents and their grandchildren so that everybody can read the same PJ books together.
Great. Excellent. So any other challenge, before we start talking about the importance of the New Year, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to the Jewish community, any other challenges in the Federation that you're working on? Any other programs you want to tell us about?
Well, the important programs about Jewish identity and feeding the hungry and taking care of our youth services are, have had a real challenge. Hillel has had a real challenge because they're in college and They're tested every week, and these are just sort of the day-to-day challenges. But I need to say unequivocally that our Federation staff is talented and resourceful. I guess resourceful is the word, and they've gone overboard, trying to connect people. Our main job at this point is to keep the Jewish community connected and to keep others in the community connected, to let them know that we're there for them. So I say, quite frankly, if you need help, come to us, and if you can help, come to us. We'll take you either way.
Okay, great. So now let's talk about the holidays. What makes this season so special for the Jewish community? For some people whose only connection to their heritage might be the upcoming Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, why is it important? What does it symbolize for us?
So it's an interesting thing, like I said, we're not religious. We leave the high holidays, days themselves, the religious days, to the rabbis and to the synagogues. But, as far as Jewish identity, we've had to learn this year how to be fluid in adapting to our customs and traditions for Rosh Hashanah. There are no synagogue services, so people are not convening there. But, there'll be people going out into the park to listen to the shofar. There'll be people, we do something like Tashlich, where you throw paper that says your sins into the river. People are going to be doing that outside. Perhaps you can, be cognizant of what your neighbors are doing. I have many people that do drive-bys, to my house to make sure that, honking, to make sure that things are okay. Anything that we can do to connect. But people are lonely. They're isolated. They need to be told Happy New Year, Good Yontif, the Shana Tova. We need to be able to connect with these people. So we'll be calling again. But the reality is that this is not going to last forever. But we do need to be fluid, and we do need to reach out even more than we normally would have, to say hello to our neighbors, to say hello to people that we know, to drop emails to people that we maybe had not, contacted, to wish them a happy and healthy New Year. Being Jewish is not easy, as all my fellow Jews know. And this year we have to go the extra mile. We have to go the extra mile to show how Jewish we are and how much we do believe in Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, and how we do need to connect each other. So we not only have to be fluid, we have to be spiritual, we have to be faithful, we have to bring all of this into our homes. And the Federation helps do that. I mean, that's our job, is to make sure that people are doing well.
Okay. So I know that you have a video that maybe you can show us that gives a New Year's greeting, an important one. Do you want to see if you can put that on, Carin?
Yeah, this is our greeting to the community for Rosh Hashanah, and I'm going to try.
Okay, great. You hear it. You can see it. You can hear the music, but we don't see the video part. We hear it, but we can't see the video part. Well, I can. Do you see it? I can't grab the video.
See it now?
Ah, now I do. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to start it again.
Excellent. There you go. Excellent. Okay. Yep, great. That's the typing we heard, right? That's lovely. Very nice.
Are we
Very nice. And people can see that if they are getting the Federation emails. You can watch it again on that, as I did just earlier today before we came on. So that's a nice message. And let's have some final words. We're going to visit from time to time to see what's happening at the JFEC and in the community. If we go another few months, I hope we're in person, maybe. That would be fantastic. But if not, we'll still connect. So some final thoughts, Carin, before we say goodbye this afternoon.
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. You know, I'm always ready to talk about Federation. Sheila, I wake up the same way every day. I say we're one day closer to all this being over. And I think that's an important message to know that this is not going to last forever. So be kind to one another, reach out to one another. I make a lot of phone calls myself. Nobody ever says, why are you calling? Everyone says, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. So, you know, try to be a little better than we were the day before. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We're doing the best we can. I think everybody does the best they can with what they got. And I think we've got a tremendous federation. So we're proud and happy about the work we've been doing, but we can always do more, and we will. So once again, you know, if you need us, come see us, and we can try to help you. And if you can help us, come and see us. We need the help. Thank you for having me on today.
All right. Thank you so much, Carin. Lashana Tova to you, to everyone in our community. Whether you're Jewish or not, Lashana Tova, Happy New Year, good health, good fortune, and may we see each other in person next time. That's the best hope. Thank you, Carin and the Jewish Federation. See you next time on TalkPack. Bye. Bye-bye.